Margaret Chen stood in her kitchen in Portland, Oregon, staring at the wire transfer confirmation on her laptop screen. She had just sent $35,000 to a man she had never met in person. A man who claimed to be a petroleum engineer trapped on an oil rig off the coast of Nigeria. A man who said he loved her more than life itself. A man whose photograph had just appeared in a reverse image search as belonging to a Finnish fitness model who had no idea his pictures were being used to scam widows across America. But here was the difference between Margaret Chen and the hundreds of other women who had fallen for similar schemes. Margaret had discovered the truth 48 hours ago, and instead of stopping the transfer, she had doubled down. Because Margaret Chen was no longer just a victim, she was about to become the most dangerous weapon law enforcement had ever deployed against international romance fraud. She was about to destroy a $5 million criminal empire from the inside out. And the men running this operation had absolutely no idea what was coming for them. Margaret Chen had been a widow for exactly 14 months when she received the first message. Her husband David had died suddenly of a heart attack at age 62 while playing tennis at their country club. One moment he was serving an ace, the next moment he was on the ground, dead before the ambulance arrived. The grief had been overwhelming. David and Margaret had been married for 37 years. They had built a successful medical device company together. She handled operations and finance while David managed sales and engineering. They had no children by choice, preferring to pour their energy into the business and extensive travel. When David died, Margaret sold the company for $8 million. The buyers kept her on as a consultant for 2 years at $200,000 annually, but she knew it was mostly a courtesy. At 58, financially secure but emotionally shattered, Margaret found herself alone in their 4-bedroom house in Portland's West Hills neighborhood, with absolutely no idea how to fill the crushing emptiness of her days. Her sister Beth had suggested online activities to meet new people, maybe a book club or a hiking group. Margaret had joined several Facebook groups for widows and widowers. The support was helpful initially. Other people who understood the particular loneliness of losing a life partner, the phantom limb sensation of reaching for someone who was no longer there. One evening in March, while scrolling through comments on a grief support group, Margaret noticed a thoughtful response from someone named Richard Morrison. He had written a compassionate message to another widow about the importance of allowing yourself to grieve without rushing the process. His words were articulate and kind. Margaret clicked on his profile. The photo showed a distinguished-looking man in his early 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. His bio said he was a petroleum engineer originally from Houston, but currently working on offshore projects. Widowed 3 years earlier when his wife died of cancer. No children, living between assignments in various countries. Something about his profile felt genuine. Maybe it was the quality of his writing, or the thoughtful nature of his comments in the group. Margaret sent him a simple friend request with a message. Your comment about grief resonating with me. Thank you for the wisdom. Richard accepted within an hour and responded immediately. Thank you, Margaret. I looked at your profile. I am so sorry about your husband. Losing a partner is the hardest thing I have ever experienced. If you ever need someone who understands to talk to, I am here. Over the next 2 weeks, they exchanged messages almost daily. Richard never pushed for more. He was patient and respectful. He asked thoughtful questions about her life with David, her work, her interests. He shared stories about his late wife, Catherine, and their life together. He talked about his work in the oil and gas industry with technical details that sounded authentic. He mentioned specific locations where he had worked: Nigeria, Kazakhstan, the Gulf of Mexico. The conversations felt natural and healing. After 3 weeks, Richard suggested they move to email for longer conversations. Margaret agreed. His emails were beautifully written, often several paragraphs long, discussing everything from classical music to international politics, to the challenges of finding meaning after devastating loss. He never mentioned being attracted to her physically. He never made inappropriate comments. He positioned himself purely as a friend who understood her pain. This restraint made Margaret trust him more. In early April, Richard mentioned he was about to start a new contract on an offshore platform in Nigeria. The project would last 6 months. Communication would be difficult because of limited internet access. But he wanted her to know how much their friendship meant to him. Margaret felt a surprising pang of disappointment. She had come to look forward to his messages. They brightened her days in ways nothing else had since David died. For the next 2 weeks, communication was indeed sporadic. Richard would send brief messages when he had connectivity, always apologizing for the gaps, always expressing how much he missed their conversations. Then one evening, Margaret received a message that changed the tenor of everything. "Margaret, I need to confess something. Over these past weeks, my feelings for you have grown beyond friendship. I know this is complicated. I know we have never met in person, but I think about you constantly. Your intelligence, your strength, your kindness. I believe I am falling in love with you. If this makes you uncomfortable, please tell me and I will never mention it again. Our friendship means too much to risk, but I had to be honest about my feelings." Margaret stared at the message for a long time. Part of her was thrilled. She had not felt desired or even noticed as a woman since David's death. Another part was cautious. This was happening very fast. They had known each other less than 2 months and had never met face to face. But Richard had been so patient, so respectful. Maybe this was how relationships developed in the modern world. She had been married since she was 21. She had no frame of reference for contemporary dating. She decided to be honest in return. "Richard, your message surprised me, but it also made me happy in a way I have not felt in a very long time. I think I have feelings for you too. I am scared because this is all so new and different. But yes, I would like to explore where this could go. Can we arrange a video call when you have connectivity?" Richard's response came 12 hours later. "Margaret, you have made me happier than I thought possible. I want nothing more than to see your beautiful face and hear your voice. Unfortunately, the platform I am on has extremely restricted bandwidth. Video calls are not permitted because they interfere with operational systems. It is frustrating beyond words. But I will be back in Houston in 4 months. The moment I land, I want to fly to Portland to meet you properly, to take you to dinner, to finally hold your hand in person. Can you wait for me?" Margaret felt disappointed about the video call but understood, or thought she understood. 4 months seemed like a long time, but she had already waited 14 months in grief. What was another few months if it meant finding love again? "I can wait," she replied, "but please send me photos from the rig when you can. I want to feel connected to your world." Over the following weeks, Richard sent occasional photos, never of himself in real time, always with explanations. "The cameras we are allowed to use cannot include people for security reasons. Company policy about proprietary operations." But he sent images of sunsets over the ocean, equipment that looked industrial and oil-related, photos that could plausibly be from an offshore platform. He also escalated the emotional intensity of his messages, telling Margaret he loved her, describing the life they would build together, talking about selling his house in Houston and moving to Portland to be near her. He painted vivid pictures of a future filled with travel and companionship. Everything Margaret desperately wanted to hear. In early May, the first request for money arrived. "Margaret, I'm so sorry to burden you with this. I'm embarrassed to even ask. But I have encountered an unexpected problem. The company I am contracting for just declared bankruptcy. The platform is still operational, but they cannot pay the crew. We are essentially stuck here until another company acquires the operation and releases us. I have been without salary for 3 weeks, and they are saying it could be another month before this is resolved. I have tried to contact my bank in Houston, but international calls are extremely difficult from here. I need to make payments on my house and my truck, or I will lose them both. I hate to ask, But could you possibly loan me $15,000 until I get back to the States? I will pay you back the moment I land with interest. I am so ashamed to ask this. If you say no, I completely understand, but I have no one else to turn to. Margaret's first instinct was to help. $15,000 was not a small amount, but it was manageable for her. If Richard truly was stuck in a difficult situation, she wanted to support someone she cared about. But something made her pause. She had read articles about romance scams, about criminals who pretended to fall in love and then asked for money. But those scams were usually obvious, right? Broken English, immediate requests for money, lack of detail. Richard had been nothing like those stereotypes. Still, Margaret decided to do some basic checking. She had Richard's full name, his claimed employer, his Houston address. She spent an entire day doing research. She found a petroleum engineer named Richard Morrison, who had worked in the industry and lived in Houston. She found an obituary for his wife Catherine from 3 years earlier. The details matched what Richard had told her. She found professional licensing records. Everything seemed legitimate. But the more she looked, the more something felt slightly off. The Richard Morrison she found online had worked primarily in the Gulf of Mexico, not internationally. His LinkedIn showed he had retired 2 years ago. The most recent photo on his company bio looked similar to her Richard, but not quite identical. Older, perhaps. Margaret decided to test Richard. She wrote back saying she wanted to help but needed his banking information to wire the money. She asked for his bank name, account number, and routing number. She also asked for a photo of his driver's license to verify his identity for the wire transfer. Richard's response took 18 hours, which was unusual. When it came, it was full of complications. "Margaret, I am so grateful you want to help. Unfortunately, I cannot access my bank account information from here. The security protocols are extremely strict. What I can do is have you wire the money to the platform's operational account, and they will credit it to me. The account manager here is a trustworthy man named Gerald, who has been helping several of us in this situation. He can receive the wire and immediately convert it to cash for me. I know this sounds irregular, but it is the only way to get funds in our current situation. Could you wire the money to this account?" He provided banking details for an account in Lagos, Nigeria. Every alarm bell in Margaret's mind started ringing. An account in Nigeria controlled by someone named Gerald, not Richard's personal account. No driver's license. No video verification. She sat at her desk for a long time, her hands shaking slightly. She thought about David, about how he would have analyzed this situation. David had always been skeptical but fair. He would have wanted evidence before jumping to conclusions. Margaret made a decision. She would send $5,000 as a test, not the full $15,000 Richard requested. She would see what happened. If Richard was legitimate, he would be grateful for whatever help she could provide. If this was a scam, the perpetrators would push for more. She wired $5,000 to the Lagos account and sent Richard a message. "I sent what I can spare right now. $5,000. I hope it helps until your situation is resolved. Please let me know when you receive it." Richard's response came within 3 hours, faster than almost any previous message. "Margaret, thank you so much. Gerald confirmed he received the wire. But I have to be honest with you. $5,000 is not enough to cover my house payment and truck payment together. I am going to lose my truck, which I need for work when I get back to the States. Is there any way you could send the additional $10,000? I promise I will pay you back every penny. I love you so much. I hate that I am in this position." Margaret stared at the message and felt something cold settle in her stomach. Not gratitude for the $5,000 she had sent. Immediate pressure for more money. That night, Margaret did something she should have done weeks earlier. She hired a private investigator. Not just any investigator. The firm she chose specialized in online fraud and romance scams. She paid them $3,000 for a comprehensive investigation of Richard Morrison. The results came back 48 hours later and confirmed her worst fears. The photographs Richard had been using belonged to a man named Lars Ekberg, a personal trainer in Helsinki, Finland. Lars had no connection to the oil industry and had never been to Nigeria. His photos had been stolen from his public Instagram account years ago and were being used in multiple romance scams across the internet. The real Richard Morrison from Houston was indeed a retired petroleum engineer, but he was 74 years old, had remarried after his wife's death, and had no knowledge of any romance scam using his identity. The investigator traced the IP addresses of Richard's messages. They originated from 3 locations: an internet cafe in Lagos, Nigeria, an apartment in Accra, Ghana, and surprisingly, a location in Queens, New York. The investigator's report included a devastating conclusion. You are communicating with an organized romance fraud operation, almost certainly based in West Africa, with American accomplices who help facilitate wire transfers. They are using stolen photos and a fabricated identity. Everything this person told you is a lie designed to manipulate you emotionally and financially. Our research indicates this operation may be responsible for scamming dozens of American women out of hundreds of thousands of dollars collectively. Margaret sat in her home office reading the report 3 times. She felt emotions cycling through her in waves. Humiliation that she had fallen for this. Anger at being manipulated. Grief because the connection she thought she had found was completely false. But underneath those emotions, something else began to emerge. A cold, calculating fury. These people had taken advantage of her vulnerability. They had monetized her grief. They had turned her loneliness into a commodity. And according to the investigator's report, she was far from their only victim. Margaret Chen had not built a multi-million-dollar company by being passive. She had not survived in the competitive medical device industry for 3 decades without learning how to strategize, execute, and win. She made a decision that would change everything. She was not going to be just another victim. She was going to destroy these people. But to do that, she needed to keep them believing she was still falling for their lies. She needed to become their perfect target while gathering every piece of evidence that would put them in prison. Margaret responded to Richard's latest request for more money with a carefully crafted message. "Richard, I am so sorry, but I made a mistake. I can only access $5,000 at a time from my investment account without triggering a review, but I can send another $5,000 in 2 days and the final $5,000 next week. Will that work? I want to help you. I love you too." The response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Margaret, that is perfect. You are saving my life. I cannot wait to hold you in my arms when I get back to Houston. Just knowing you believe in me and in us means everything." Over the next 2 days, Margaret set up her operation. She opened a new email account and began documenting every message Richard had ever sent her. She created a spreadsheet tracking every claim he had made about his life, his work, his situation. She installed screen recording software on her computer to capture every interaction. She contacted the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center and filed a detailed report. An agent named Victoria Barnes from the Portland field office called her within 24 hours. "Mrs. Chen, I read your complaint. This is exactly the kind of case we want to pursue. Romance scams are stealing billions of dollars from Americans every year, and the perpetrators almost never face consequences. If you are willing to work with us as a cooperating witness, we can use your case to track these criminals and potentially take down their entire operation. But I need to be clear about the risks. These people can become dangerous if they suspect you are cooperating with law enforcement. Are you certain you want to proceed?" Margaret did not hesitate. "Agent Barnes, my husband died suddenly 14 months ago. I have spent the last year feeling like my life is over. like I have nothing meaningful to contribute anymore. These people tried to take advantage of that grief. I want to make sure they never do this to anyone else. Whatever you need from me, I will do it. Victoria Barnes scheduled a meeting at Margaret's house for the next day. She arrived with another agent named Marcus Webb, who specialized in cybercrime and international fraud. They spent 4 hours going through everything Margaret had documented. Every message, every photo, every detail of the scam. "This is incredibly thorough work," Marcus said with genuine admiration. "Most victims do not have this level of documentation. The problem we face is jurisdiction. These perpetrators are almost certainly in West Africa. We can track them, identify them, but extraditing them is nearly impossible." However, Marcus continued, his expression becoming more serious, there is usually an American connection. Someone in the United States who helps set up the bank accounts, receives wire transfers, and forwards money overseas. Those people we can prosecute. If you are willing to continue this relationship with Richard, we might be able to identify the American accomplices and build a case that could eventually lead us to the overseas operators. "What exactly would you need me to do?" Margaret asked. "Continue communicating with Richard as if you suspect nothing. Send money through the channels they provide. We will track every transaction. We will identify everyone involved in moving that money, and we will build a federal case for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The money you send will become evidence. We will work to recover it, but I cannot promise that will happen. You could lose everything you send." Margaret thought about this carefully. "How much money are we talking about?" "As much as you are comfortable risking. The more money that flows through their system, the more transactions we can track, the stronger our case becomes. Some victims in similar operations have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars." Margaret made a calculation. "I could send up to $200,000 without significantly impacting my finances. Would that be enough?" Victoria and Marcus exchanged glances. "That would be more than enough," Victoria said. "But Mrs. Chen, I need you to understand what you would be doing. You would be essentially working undercover for the FBI. These people will ask you for money repeatedly. They will create elaborate stories to justify each request. You will need to pretend to believe them while gathering evidence. It will be emotionally difficult. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this?" Margaret looked at the photo of her and David on the bookshelf, taken in Thailand on their 30th anniversary. David smiling at her with such love, she thought about what he would say. She knew exactly what he would say. He would tell her to be smart, be safe, but never let anyone take advantage of her without consequences. "I am certain," Margaret said firmly. "Tell me exactly what you need me to do." Over the next 2 hours, they established protocols. Margaret would continue all communication with Richard through her regular email and messaging accounts, but she would secretly forward everything to a secure FBI email address. She would record all phone calls if any occurred. She would document every request for money and every reason they provided. Before sending any money, she would notify Marcus Webb, who would coordinate with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit to track the transfers in real time. They installed specialized software on Margaret's computer that would allow the FBI to monitor her online activity without the scammers detecting anything unusual. They set up a secure messaging system so Margaret could communicate with her FBI handlers without leaving traces that the scammers might discover. Most importantly, they established safety protocols. If at any point Margaret felt threatened or wanted to stop, she only needed to send a single code word. The operation would end immediately, and the FBI would move to arrest whoever they had identified up to that point. That night, Margaret sent Richard another $5,000, and then another $5,000 the following week. Just as she had promised, each time she documented the bank account information. Each time the FBI tracked where the money went. The pattern became clear quickly. Money wired to a bank account in Lagos would be withdrawn within hours. It would then be converted to Bitcoin and transferred to multiple digital wallets. Some of that Bitcoin would be cashed out at exchanges in Ghana, Nigeria, and surprisingly, New York and Los Angeles. The American connection, Marcus explained during a briefing, is critical. Someone in the United States is helping them convert digital currency to cash. We are working to identify those individuals. Once Margaret had sent the full $15,000 Richard initially requested, there was a brief pause in communication. For 3 days, she heard nothing. She began to worry that they had somehow detected her cooperation with the FBI. But then, Richard returned with a new crisis. "Margaret, I have terrible news. The situation on the platform has gotten worse. The new company that was supposed to acquire operations has pulled out of the deal. We have been informed that we will be stuck here for at least another 2 months. The company that owes us money is claiming bankruptcy and says they cannot even evacuate us back to shore. We literally do not have enough food or fresh water for that long. The platform manager says we need to pay for supplies and a charter boat to bring them to us. My share of the costs is $45,000. I know this is an enormous amount. I know I have already asked so much of you. But Margaret, I am scared. We are running out of food. I do not know what else to do. If you cannot help, I understand. But please, if there is any way you can loan me this money, I will pay you back the moment I get to shore. I have over $300,000 in my retirement account that I can access once I am back in the United States. You will not lose a penny. I promise you." Margaret read the message with Victoria Barnes sitting next to her. They had established a routine where Victoria would come to Margaret's house for the major communications. "This is the escalation we expected," Victoria said. "They have successfully extracted 15,000. Now they are testing whether you will go higher. 45,000 is a significant jump. If you send this, it confirms to them that you are a high-value target. They will keep creating crises until you have nothing left to give." "I understand," Margaret said. "So I should send it? If you are comfortable doing so, yes. We are getting closer to identifying the American connections. Every transaction gives us more data." Margaret took a deep breath. "Before I send this money, I want to try something. I want to push back slightly to see how they respond. It might give us information about their operation." She wrote a response to Richard. "Richard, I am so worried about you. I want to help, but $45,000 is a huge amount. I need some assurances. Can we please do a video call? Even a brief one. I need to see you and know you are really where you say you are. I am sorry to ask, but this is just so much money." The response took almost 6 hours. During that time, Margaret imagined the scammers arguing about how to handle her request. When Richard's message finally came, it was different in tone. More defensive. "Margaret, I am hurt that you seem to doubt me. After everything we have shared, after all the love I have expressed, you need video proof before you help me in a life-threatening situation. The platform manager has told me categorically that video calls cannot be permitted. They interfere with critical systems. If we violate that rule, we could all be fired and lose our final chance at getting paid. I thought you trusted me. I thought what we had was based on faith and love, not suspicion. If you cannot help me, just say so. I will find another way. But please do not make me prove my love through a video call that I cannot make." Margaret recognized the manipulation immediately. The guilt trip. The suggestion that asking for verification was a betrayal. Victoria, who was reading over Margaret's shoulder, shook her head. Classic response. They create a situation where your reasonable request is reframed as a lack of trust. "Let me respond carefully," Margaret said. She typed a new message. "Richard, I am so sorry. You are right. I do trust you. I am just scared because this is so much money, but I cannot let you starve on that platform. I will send the $45,000, but I need to do it in installments. My bank limits how much I can wire internationally in a single day. I can send $15,000 today, $15,000 tomorrow, and $15,000 the day after. Please tell me that will work." Richard's response came in less than an hour. "Margaret, thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Yes, the installments will work. Just please send them as quickly as possible. Our food situation is critical. I love you so much. I promise I will make this up to you when we are finally together." Over the next 3 days, Margaret wired $45,000 in 3 separate transactions. The FBI tracked every cent. The money followed the same pattern as before. Nigerian bank account, converted to Bitcoin, distributed to multiple digital wallets, cashed out in various locations. But this time, Marcus Webb's team identified something crucial. One of the Bitcoin conversions happened at an exchange in Long Island City, New York. The person who picked up the cash was recorded on the exchange's security camera, a young man in his mid-20s, well-dressed, driving a new Mercedes. The FBI ran facial recognition and identified him as Brandon Hayes, age 26, originally from Lagos, Nigeria, but now a naturalized American citizen living in Queens. Brandon Hayes had no criminal record. On paper, he was a legitimate businessman running a company called Global Remittance Solutions that helped West African immigrants send money to their families back home. But when the FBI began surveillance, they observed something very different. Brandon would visit cryptocurrency exchanges and money service businesses multiple times per day. He would pick up large amounts of cash. He would meet with various individuals, usually in parking lots or fast food restaurants, and exchange envelopes. He was a money mule. Not the mastermind, but a critical piece of the operation. And because he was operating in the United States, he was someone the FBI could actually arrest and prosecute. "We have enough to get a warrant for his financial records," Marcus told Margaret during their next briefing. "But we want to let the operation run longer. We think Brandon is connected to a larger network. If we arrest him now, everyone else will scatter. If we wait and gather more evidence, we can potentially take down multiple people simultaneously." After Margaret sent the $45,000, Richard went silent for nearly a week. Then he sent a message that was different from his usual communication. It was shorter and more direct. "Margaret, I need to be honest with you about something that has happened. The platform manager has informed us that the evacuation costs are higher than expected. It is going to be $75,000 per person, not $45,000. I already used the money you sent for emergency food and water. I still need another $75,000 for the evacuation. I know this is an enormous amount. I know I have already asked for so much. But if I do not get off this platform soon, I'm going to lose my mind. The isolation and stress are destroying me. Please, Margaret, I am begging you. Is there any way you can help me with this final amount? I will sign over the deed to my house in Houston as collateral. I will do anything to prove that I will pay you back." Margaret read the message and felt a spike of anger. They were asking for $75,000 after she had already sent $60,000. They were bleeding her dry with escalating emergencies. She looked at Victoria, who had become a regular presence in her home office. "This is the squeeze," Victoria said. "They have determined you are willing to pay. Now they will extract as much as possible before you finally run out of money or catch on." "How much more do we need to send for your case?" Margaret asked. "We have enough for a solid prosecution of Brandon Hayes and at least 2 other American accomplices we have identified. But if you are willing to continue, we might be able to identify the overseas operators. There is a chance, a small chance, that we could work with Nigerian authorities to actually arrest the people running this scam. That almost never happens. But with enough evidence, we might be able to make it happen. How much would you need to send?" Another 75,000 would probably take us to the limit of what the operation can handle. At that point, they will either cut contact and disappear, or they will make a mistake that exposes their full network. Margaret thought about her financial situation. She had sent $60,000 so far. Another $75,000 would bring the total to $135,000. Well within what she had told them she could afford to risk. But sending that much money, even knowing it was for a law enforcement operation, felt surreal. She thought about all the other women who had been scammed, who did not have her resources, who lost their life savings to these criminals, who ended their involvement feeling humiliated and violated with no justice. "I will send it," Margaret said. "But I want to try something first. I want to make one more request for video contact. I want to see if they have any way to produce a fake video. If they do, it might tell us more about their technical capabilities and potentially lead to whoever is creating those videos." She wrote to Richard, "Richard, I will send the money. All $75,000. But I need one thing from you first. I need to hear your voice. Not video if that is impossible, but a phone call. Just 10 minutes. I need to hear you tell me directly that you are okay and that you will pay me back. I think I deserve that before I send this much additional money." The response came in less than 2 hours. "Margaret, of course you deserve to hear my voice. You deserve everything. I will arrange a call. The platform has a satellite phone that I can use for emergencies. It costs $50 per minute, which is why I have been avoiding calls. But you are right. You deserve to hear from me directly. I will call you tomorrow at 8 p.m. your time. Please answer no matter what number appears on your screen. It will be an international code." Margaret felt her heart race. She immediately called Victoria. "They are going to attempt a phone call. This is huge. We need to set up recording equipment and try to trace the call origin." Victoria arrived at Margaret's house the next day with a technical team. They installed sophisticated call recording and tracing equipment. They briefed Margaret on what to listen for: voice stress analysis that might indicate lies, background noises that might reveal location, any details the caller let slip that contradicted the Richard Morrison story. At exactly 8 p.m., Margaret's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number with a country code she did not recognize. Margaret answered on speaker with Victoria and Marcus sitting next to her listening through headphones. "Hello," Margaret said, trying to sound nervous and excited. "Margaret, my love," came a voice with an American accent. "It is so good to finally hear your voice. Is this really you, Richard?" "It is me, baby. I am so sorry we have not been able to talk before now. This satellite phone costs a fortune, but I needed to hear you. How are you? Where exactly are you calling from? I am on the platform off the coast of Nigeria. I cannot tell you how much your support has meant to me. You have literally saved my life." Margaret engaged him in conversation for exactly 10 minutes. She asked questions about the platform, about the other workers, about the food situation, about when he expected to evacuate. The man played his role well. He had answers for everything. He sounded American. He sounded sincere. He sounded like someone who had spent months building an emotional connection. When the call ended, Margaret sat back, feeling drained. "That was incredibly believable," she said. "If I did not know this was a scam, I would be completely convinced." Marcus was already working on his laptop analyzing the call data. The number he called from is a voice over internet protocol line. It was routed through servers in 6 different countries to make it appear like an international call. But the actual origin point was Newark, New Jersey. He is not in Nigeria. He is in the United States. We have another American accomplice. "This is excellent," Victoria said. "They are getting sloppy. They felt confident enough to make a call and they made a mistake. Marcus, can you trace that VoIP account?" "Already on it. Marcus replied. The account was created 3 days ago using a prepaid credit card purchased at a convenience store in Newark. But the IP address that set up the account traces to an apartment in Newark. I have a name. Andre Okonkwo, age 32, Nigerian-American, works as a rideshare driver. Margaret felt a surge of satisfaction. With every interaction, she was giving the FBI more threads to pull, more evidence to build their case, more criminals to identify and prosecute. She sent Richard a message after the call. Thank you so much for calling. Hearing your voice made everything feel real again. I will send the $75,000 starting tomorrow. $15,000 per day for 5 days like before. I love you, and I cannot wait until you are home safe. Over the next 5 days, Margaret wired $75,000 in 5 separate transactions. The FBI tracked every cent. They identified 2 more American accomplices involved in receiving and distributing the money. They documented the entire network. Nigerian scammers creating the fake identities and conducting the emotional manipulation. American accomplices providing US-based bank accounts, phones, and money laundering services. Cryptocurrency exchanges being used to move money internationally. And most importantly, they identified what they believed was a coordination point. A 3-bedroom apartment in Lagos, Nigeria, where multiple computers and phones were registered, where WhatsApp messages and emails to at least 15 different American victims were being sent. The operation was much bigger than just Margaret. The FBI estimated that this particular romance fraud ring had scammed at least 40 American victims in the past 2 years. Total losses exceeded $5 million. Margaret Chen had unknowingly become part of the largest and most successful investigation of a romance scam operation that the FBI had conducted in years. After Margaret sent the final installment of the $75,000, Richard sent a message that signaled the beginning of the end. Margaret, my love, I have the most incredible news. The evacuation is finally happening. A supply ship is coming to pick us up in 3 days. I will be back in Houston in 1 week. I can finally hold you in my arms. I can finally start repaying you for everything you have done. I love you more than words can express. Margaret felt a strange mixture of emotions reading this message. Relief that the operation was moving toward conclusion. Satisfaction that she had played her role perfectly. But also a surprising echo of the grief that had made her vulnerable to this scam in the first place. She was not grieving for fake Richard. She was grieving for the connection she had briefly believed was real. The hope that she might find love again after David. The fantasy that someone could see her and want her and cherish her. Even though she knew it was all manipulation, there had been moments when she let herself believe, when she wanted it to be true. She pushed those feelings aside and focused on the task at hand. She called Victoria Barnes. Richard says he is evacuating and coming to Houston. What happens now? Now we move to the arrest phase, Victoria said. We have identified 7 American accomplices in this operation. Brandon Hayes in Queens, Andre Okonkwo in Newark, 3 others in Los Angeles, Miami, and Atlanta. We have enough evidence to arrest all of them simultaneously. We are also working with Nigerian authorities to potentially raid the Lagos apartment and arrest the primary operators, but that part is uncertain. Nigerian law enforcement cooperation is unpredictable. When will you make the arrests? As soon as Richard tells you he has landed in Houston. That is when we know he thinks the scam has succeeded. That is when all his accomplices will be preparing to collect their shares of your money. That is when we hit them all at once. Margaret waited for 3 days. Then Richard sent an ecstatic message. Margaret, I am in Houston. I just landed an hour ago. I am at my house now. I cannot believe I am finally home. I cannot believe I get to see you soon. Give me 2 days to settle in and take care of some financial matters. Then I will fly to Portland. and we can finally be together. I promise you, this is the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of our lives." Margaret forwarded the message to Victoria. "He claims to be in Houston. Is he really?" Marcus traced the message. It came from the same apartment in Newark where Andre Okonkwo lives. "He is not in Houston. He has never been in Houston. He has probably never even been on an oil rig. Everything was a lie from beginning to end." That evening, Margaret received a phone call from Victoria Barnes. "Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, we are executing arrest warrants on all 7 American subjects. We will simultaneously be working with Interpol and Nigerian authorities to attempt arrests in Lagos. I want you to be prepared. Once we make these arrests, Richard will know something has gone wrong. He may try to contact you. He may try to threaten you. I need you to not respond to any communication. We will have agents watching your house for the next week as a precaution. Do you understand?" "I understand," Margaret said. "Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for letting me be part of bringing these people to justice." "You did not just participate," Victoria replied. "You were instrumental. Without your cooperation, your detailed documentation, your willingness to continue engaging with these criminals, we would never have been able to build this case. You should be proud." The next morning, Margaret woke up at 5 a.m. Pacific time. She made coffee and sat in her home office watching the clock. At exactly 6 a.m. Eastern Time, she knew that FBI teams were executing search and arrest warrants across 4 states. She imagined Brandon Hayes being woken up by federal agents at his Queens apartment, Andre Okonkwo in Newark, the others in Los Angeles, Miami, Atlanta, all of them being arrested simultaneously so none could warn the others. Her phone remained silent. At 9 a.m. Pacific Time, Victoria called. "All 7 American subjects are in custody. We seized computers, phones, financial records. We have enough evidence to prosecute them for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. Combined, they are looking at potential sentences ranging from 5 to 20 years. What about the people in Nigeria? That is the complicated part. We shared our evidence with Nigerian authorities. They raided the Lagos apartment. They arrested 4 individuals, but the primary operators were not there. We think they were tipped off. Someone may have noticed our surveillance or there may have been a leak. We do not know. But we did seize their computers and phones. We have evidence of hundreds of victims. We have their methods, their scripts, their training materials. Even if we cannot arrest the top people yet, we have destroyed their operation." Margaret absorbed this information. They did not get everyone, but they got enough to severely damage a $5 million criminal enterprise. "That is a victory," she said. "It is absolutely a victory," Victoria confirmed. "And Mrs. Chen, there is one more thing. The money you sent. We have been able to freeze several of the bank accounts before the funds were fully distributed. We believe we can recover approximately 90,000 of the 135,000 you sent. It will take time. Months probably, but you will get most of your money back." Margaret felt relief. She had been prepared to lose all of it. Getting 2/3 back was more than she had hoped for. That afternoon, Margaret's phone buzzed with a WhatsApp message. It was from Richard, or whoever had been playing Richard. "Margaret, I do not know what happened. Federal agents just raided my friend's apartment. They are asking about you. They are asking about money transfers. Did you report me? Did you work with the police? How could you do this to me after everything we shared? I loved you. I trusted you. You destroyed my life." Margaret stared at the message. She thought about responding, thought about telling this person exactly what she thought of their lies and manipulation. But she remembered Victoria's instructions. Do not engage. She blocked the number. She deleted the WhatsApp conversation. She closed that chapter of her life, but she kept all the documentation, every email, every message, every transaction record, because her work was not done. 2 weeks after the arrests, Victoria Barnes invited Margaret to the Portland FBI field office. When she arrived, she was ushered into a conference room where a dozen people were waiting. Agents, prosecutors, even a representative from the Department of Justice in Washington. They gave Margaret a standing ovation. Agent Barnes stepped forward. "Mrs. Chen, we wanted to bring you here to personally thank you for your extraordinary cooperation. Your willingness to work with us has resulted in one of the most successful romance fraud prosecutions in FBI history. All 7 American defendants have been charged. 3 have already pleaded guilty and are cooperating in providing information about the overseas operators. We believe this case will lead to additional investigations and arrests. But more importantly," Marcus Webb added, "we want to offer you an opportunity. We have been working with the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice to create a task force focused on romance fraud and cyber-enabled financial crimes. These scams are stealing billions of dollars from Americans every year. The vast majority of victims never report. Those who do report rarely see justice. We want to change that. We would like you to consider working with us as a consultant and victim advocate. Your experience, your intelligence, your documentation skills are exactly what we need." Margaret listened as they outlined what they were proposing. She would work with law enforcement to help develop better victim outreach programs. She would consult on active investigations. She would potentially testify before Congress about the scope of romance fraud and the need for better international cooperation to prosecute offenders. She would help train FBI agents on how to work with victims as cooperating witnesses. She would become a voice for thousands of people who had been scammed and felt too ashamed to come forward. "I am not an expert in law enforcement," Margaret said. "I am just a widow who got angry about being scammed." "That is exactly why you are perfect for this role," Victoria replied. "You understand what victims are feeling. You understand the shame and the self-blame. You can talk to them in a way that law enforcement cannot. You can help them see that they are not stupid. They are not alone. They can fight back." Margaret thought about David, about the life they had built together, about the emptiness she had felt after his death, about how she had been searching for purpose. Maybe this was it. Maybe turning her worst experience into something that could help others was exactly the meaning she had been looking for. "I will do it," she said. "Where do we start?" Over the next 6 months, Margaret became an integral part of the FBI's romance fraud task force. She worked with dozens of other victims. Some had lost tens of thousands of dollars. Others had lost hundreds of thousands. A few had lost over $1 million. She helped them overcome their shame. She showed them that seeking justice was not just possible but necessary. She taught them how to document their cases, how to work with law enforcement, how to process the emotional trauma while also taking practical steps to hold criminals accountable. She also worked with the Department of Justice on a public awareness campaign. Using her own story, with her permission, they created educational materials warning Americans about romance scams. The materials were distributed through AARP, senior centers, online safety organizations. Margaret appeared in a series of videos explaining warning signs, requests for money, especially wire transfers or cryptocurrency, refusal to meet in person or video chat, elaborate stories about being overseas or in difficult situations, escalating emergencies that always require financial help, extreme declarations of love very early in the relationship, inconsistencies in their stories or details that do not match their claimed background. The campaign reached millions of Americans. The FBI reported a 20% increase in romance scam reports in the following year, not because scams increased, but because more victims felt empowered to come forward. Margaret testified before Congress about the need for better international cooperation to prosecute romance fraud criminals. Most of these operations are based in West Africa or Eastern Europe, she told the Senate Judiciary Committee. American law enforcement can arrest the money mules and accomplices in the United States, but without cooperation from foreign governments, the masterminds escape justice. We need bilateral agreements. We need to make romance fraud prosecution a priority in our diplomatic relationships. We need to fund international task forces that can actually track and arrest these criminals wherever they operate. Her testimony was covered by national media. The widow who took down a $5 million scam operation became a national figure. She received hundreds of letters from other victims thanking her for speaking out, for making them feel less alone, for showing them that they could fight back. But the most meaningful outcome came 14 months after the initial arrests. Victoria Barnes called Margaret with news. The Nigerian authorities, working with Interpol, had arrested 12 individuals connected to the Lagos operation. Not the very top operators who had likely fled to other countries, but significant members of the organization, people who had been running scams for years, people who had stolen millions of dollars from victims around the world, and the key evidence that led to their arrests, the detailed documentation Margaret had provided, the transaction records, the message logs, the technical evidence gathered through her cooperation. Your work directly led to these arrests, Victoria said. These 12 people are facing serious charges in Nigeria. They will spend years in prison. That is justice. That is real justice. Margaret sat in her home office looking at the photo of her and David. She had spent the past 2 years transforming her grief into purpose. The pain of losing David would never fully disappear, but she had found a way to honor his memory by refusing to be a passive victim, by fighting back, by helping others fight back. She had destroyed a $5 million criminal empire from the inside. She had helped send nearly 20 criminals to prison. She had changed FBI procedures for handling romance fraud cases. She had educated millions of Americans about how to protect themselves. She had turned her worst experience into a force for good. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from a woman named Patricia Williamson in Texas. Margaret had been working with Patricia for 3 months on her case. Patricia had lost $80,000 to a romance scammer claiming to be a soldier in Afghanistan. With Margaret's help, Patricia had worked with the FBI to track the money and identify the criminals. The message read, simply, "Thank you. Because of you, I got $40,000 back, and the man who scammed me is in federal prison. I know that does not erase what happened, but it means something. It means I fought back. It means he will not hurt anyone else because of me. Thank you for showing me that was possible." Margaret smiled and replied, "You are so welcome. You did the hard work. You were brave enough to come forward and cooperate. You should be proud." She stood up and walked to the window. Portland stretched out below her. Somewhere in this city were other widows, other lonely people, other vulnerable souls who might be targeted by scammers. But now there was a network ready to help them, resources to protect them, a system that took their suffering seriously. Margaret Chen had started this journey as a victim, a lonely widow manipulated by criminals who saw her grief as an opportunity for profit. But she had refused to accept that role. She had transformed herself into something the scammers never expected: a weapon, an investigator, an advocate, a force for justice. The gold bracelet incident had never happened in her story. Richard had never sent her jewelry, but Margaret had her own token of what she had survived and overcome. She wore a simple silver necklace that David had given her on their 20th anniversary. She touched it now, feeling the familiar weight. David would have been proud of what she had done. Not because she had caught criminals, though that mattered, but because she had refused to let cruelty and manipulation define her final chapter. She had chosen to fight, and in fighting, she had found purpose again. The FBI task force was meeting next week to discuss expanding their program to other cities. Margaret would be presenting a proposal for training victim advocates across the country, people who had been scammed who wanted to help others, people who understood the shame and the anger and the desire for justice. She was building an army of survivors who refused to be silent. The romance fraud industry was worth billions globally. It destroyed lives daily. But now it had an enemy. Victims who fought back. Law enforcement that took the crimes seriously. International cooperation that made prosecution possible. And at the center of it all, a widow from Portland who had turned her grief into the weapon that started dismantling a $5 million criminal empire. Margaret Chen looked at her calendar. Tomorrow she had 3 victim consultations scheduled. Next week, the FBI meeting. The week after, a speaking engagement at a conference on cybercrime. Her retirement had become busier than her career had ever been. But this work felt different. This work saved lives. This work meant something. She thought about all the victims who would never come forward, who would suffer in silence, believing they were the only ones stupid enough to fall for such obvious lies. She wished she could reach them all. Tell them it was not obvious. Tell them the criminals were professionals who studied psychology and exploited fundamental human needs for connection and love. Tell them that being vulnerable was not a weakness. Being lonely was not a crime. Wanting to believe in love again was not foolish. But falling for a scam did not have to be the end of the story. It could be the beginning of something else. Something powerful. Something that helped others. Margaret had learned that grief could be transformed. Pain could become purpose. Victimhood could become advocacy. And a widow who had lost everything could find new meaning in making sure the people who tried to destroy her faced real consequences. She had destroyed a $5 million romance scam ring from the inside. But more importantly, she had rebuilt herself in the process. The woman who had sent that first friend request to fake Richard Morrison 14 months after David's death was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who understood that true power came not from never being hurt, but from refusing to let that hurt be the final word. Margaret Chen closed her laptop and prepared for another day of work. Another day of helping victims become survivors. Another day of proving that even the most sophisticated criminals could be brought down by one determined person who refused to accept the role they tried to assign her. The scammers had seen a lonely widow with money. They had seen an easy target. They had been catastrophically wrong. They had awakened something they could never have anticipated. They had given Margaret Chen a purpose, and she intended to spend the rest of her life making them regret that mistake.